And Your Honor, this guy, if he opens his mouth, you need to look inside to see if his tongue is notarized, because he does not tell you the truth.
This is the plaintiff, Stanley Sims Sr. He says he hired the defendant to design a logo and website for his nonprofit organization that empowers minorities to work together. The defendant got in over his head. He never received what he paid for, and this guy has a lot of talk in him and no walk. He's suing for the $2,716.72 he's owed. This is the defendant, Brian. He says he doesn't owe the plaintiff anything because he designed his logo but had trouble moving forward with the website because the plaintiff never provided him with written approval. He thinks the guy's technologically challenged and he's sorry, but he deserves every penny he was paid. He's accused of not getting it done. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $1,250 for the balance owed on the contract.
All parties, please raise your right hand.
What you are about to witness is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in civil court. Both parties have agreed to drop their claims and have their cases settled here before Judge Marilyn Milian in our forum, the People's Court.
People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Milian is now presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Sims, you are Executive Director of Helping Entrepreneurs Leverage Prosperity, otherwise known as HELP, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what your organization does.
I am deliciously proud. We founded this organization called HELP, helping communities of color navigate through this pandemic, also through a lot of social issues. It was very paramount for me to develop a website because working with the family of the George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, so many of our social justice issues, I needed a website in order to get our message out there. And the defendant is right. I am technology challenged. I contacted him in February of 1st, explained my situation to him. Your Honor, this gentleman is quite talented. It's just get him to do what he talk about was just something I was not successful in doing.
Now you met with him and you for $1,250, that was the deposit, right?
Yes, ma'am.
He was going to create a logo, create a website, and do business cards, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. He told me the $2,500, told me about his system. During that conversation, I reiterated, I said, now, you know I'm not technology smart. My kids have to help me put contacts in my iPhone.
Well, contacts in your iPhone. I thought he was going to say in his eyes. So, I get that. But if it weren't for folks who aren't technology savvy, there wouldn't be a job for the defendant. So I presume that is a happy effect. I'm looking for a contract. Is there a written contract or an email that encapsulates what the business proposition between you guys was?
Yes, Your Honor. There is a contract that was submitted to evidence.
Yeah. And what that is supposed to include is what I'm seeing here, correct?
That's
yes,
correct.
ma'am.
Okay. So
That's
what
correct.
went wrong, Mr. Sims?
What went wrong is once he got my money, it was hard to get in touch with him to get a product.
Okay.
Finally, after several months, he sent me the sample, which is in there, He kept, Mr. Bryan has a good heart. He works in our community. He said he had some issues with his children. I kept taking the excuses, but then I kept seeing other people weren't getting done. I even went to an event that Mr. Bryan does every Wednesday here, to ask him, hey, where am I on the list? These are the type strategies I have to do in order to get an answer from him. Not that it's a truthful one, Your Honor. This guy, If he opens his mouth, you need to look inside to see if his tongue is notarized because he does not tell you the truth. And so I went out that if you'll look in your evidence, you'll see a Zoom meeting that we had there in September.
Okay, when did you give him the
I'll-
money? When did you give him the deposit?
in April. I gave him the $1,250 and I had paid him for everything he needed to produce, not just the cards, because Your Honor,
Right, but
he
you
didn't
have to
even
pick
need
the logo before you can do that. Did you pick a logo?
After his staff finally sent me a draft, I gave them the feedback and I never heard anything else from them. Never seen any more work product. He
What
got
was the
snippy.
feedback you gave him?
If you look at those logos, none of those had an urban or a social justice feel to them. I told him maybe try a black fist or something that's the
Right.
feedback that I got.
Did
And
you
I
ever
never
see
got that
logos?
product.
You never saw logos with the black fist.
Your Honor, the only work product I received from the defendant is those samples which I rejected
Without
once I
the
got
fist.
right. They
Okay.
none had the urban feel.
All right. So, Mr. Bryan,
And
what
I
is?
have the
Hold on,
text
Mr. Sims.
messages.
Hold on, Mr. Bryan. What is your response to what he just said?
What he said is very untrue. And first, I would like to also clarify that Mr. Sims paid a deposit on April 19th. He also signed the contract and agreed to the payment terms and schedule, which required that he made payments every 2 weeks after executing the contract, which he failed to do. The only payment that we received was his deposit.
Okay.
We also sent
So,
reminders.
Mr. Sims, he's correct. I see in the contract that there's a deposit, and then every 2 weeks you're supposed to be paying $300. And the reason you didn't is what?
Is the reason I didn't, Your Honor, is because he wasn't staying online with the contract,
Okay.
with the work
That's not true.
production. And then also, Your Honor, I sent you iMessages where he was getting flippant with me with saying, well, I'll just charge you $400 for the 3 samples. And also, Your Honor, let me also show that
I'm
I
trying
tried
to understand something. There is an email to you on June 7th with revised logos with the fist.
Right, Your Honor, when he sent this to me, he knew
You never
it wasn't
saw this,
right.
though, because I asked you if you ever saw anything with fists, and your answer was no. You never saw
Right.
what I'm looking at. And this is an email
Well-
that was sent to you in June. So this isn't a matter of being technologically not super savvy. This is a matter of not reading your emails.
Well, Your Honor, let me explain something. I saw these logos from the conference that we had with his staff and gave him feedback.
When did you have the conference with the staff? Might you know, Mr.
what's-
Bryan, when that was?
I believe so. To give you a more accurate timeline, Mr. Sims made his payment on April 17th, and on April 19th, he executed the contract, thus agreeing to the terms. The following day, I sent him an email to kick off his project. I sent him a meeting link to schedule a time to meet with us. That is also submitted in evidence. And Mr.
Did he
Sims called me.
respond to your meeting link?
He did not.
Yes,
He
I did,
sent me
Your
a
Honor.
text message
How
and
did you
asked me to call him.
respond? Hold on one second. How did you respond to the meeting link, Mr. Sims?
Your Honor, like I said, I'm not. He has it where you have to go into the software. I called Brian.
No, you don't have
You
to go into the
understand?
software. All you have to do is click on it, and then it gives you some available dates. But he doesn't
No,
work
but
that
Your
way.
Honor,
He's old school,
right.
and you knew he was old school, Mr. Bryan. So he picks up the
Exactly.
phone and calls
And
you.
so-
And then what happens, Mr. Bryan?
And he told me that he was technology challenged, and I said, okay, I'll work with you as best as I can.
Okay.
And so I scheduled a time to meet with him on April 28th in person.
Okay.
Mr. Sims claimed that we didn't have contact for several months. We met. I emailed him the next day, and we met the following week.
Is that
During that
accurate, Mr.
meeting-
Sims?
Ma'am.
Yes or no? Is
I've
it accurate?
No, ma'am.
You never met with him on April 28th?
I met with him. That's
Okay,
the day I
so it is
called
accurate.
Brian.
All right, Mr. Bryan, go on. What happened after April 28th so I can figure out where things went wrong here?
After we met on April 28th, I connected Mr. Sims with our graphic designer because I, as a CEO, don't design every project. He spoke with the graphic designer. He submitted a form for logo consultation, which is also submitted in evidence. The same day, I helped him go through it. And in it, he specified his preferences as far as the colors, the shapes, the text, and the objects.
Okay, so now you guys do a logo. The first logo that you email him goes out when?
It goes out on May 19th.
Okay. He doesn't like those. He feels like he wants a more urban feel. He responds to you, but he doesn't do the responses in writing. He calls and says those things, correct or no?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And then your graphics people work on it again, and they send him a logo on June 7th, a couple of weeks later, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
He never sees that or he never responds to it.
He does not respond to it.
Now, according to him, it wasn't until after that that you had another meeting and that he sees the fists for the first time. Do you know when that meeting was? It would be a date after June 7th.
We did not have another meeting after that.
Okay.
Our designer texted him 3 logo options, technically 4, on
When
June
did your
10th.
designer text the logos?
June 10th. And on June 15th, Mr. Sams requested a phone call via text message.
And then
Because he never called me.
Hold on. I
He
know,
never
Mr.
called
Sims,
me.
because you want to do things the old way and they want to do things the new way. They don't want to do things through phone calls because then it becomes he said, he said. They want to do things in writing. Please give me a call when you can. And then you say, I will call you tomorrow. But then do you call him tomorrow? Or?
No, I called him, and it was then that he had expressed to me that he was leaning toward logo B, and I requested that he send me written approval so that we can move forward.
Yeah. Now, did he? Right. See, that's why they want it in writing. Because you shake your head when he says he did something, and he shakes his head when you say, I said something on the phone. That's why things have to be in email or text so that there are no problems. So in any
Your Honor,
event,
may I
you
say something?
no, hold on. What communication do you two have that I can see in proof in writing between August 12th and September 2nd? There was supposed to be a meeting on September 2nd. Is that correct, Mr. Bryan?
My assistant had contacted Mr. Sims to schedule a meeting with him because I was sick the month prior, and we had a couple COVID cases internally. So that was my soonest availability.
Right.
And she scheduled the meeting with him on September 2nd. On that day, Mr. Sims sent me a message at 6 in the morning asking me to give him a call. And it was too early. I was getting my kids ready for school. And I said, why do you need to reschedule? And he replied, yes.
Is that accurate, Mr. Sims?
He canceled.
Okay.
And I said, okay, because I'm slammed too. But
Okay,
then,
let's see
Your
the
Honor,
text so we can see who's closer to the truth here. I see the please give me a call at 6:49.
And if you scroll down, you'll see the rest of the email thread.
You say, good morning. Okay, do you need to reschedule? And he says, yes. That's you rescheduling.
Right, Your Honor, because he told me about the situation. in his
Okay,
house.
what would be a better day? No, but that's you. But that's not true. I'm looking at it. You're calling him. He says, what do you need? Do you need to reschedule? You say yes. He says, okay, what's a better day for you? See, that doesn't sound like somebody who's not doing their
But
job.
Your Honor, look, I'm trying to work with him.
You're trying to work with him. It
But-
sounds like he's trying to work with you. You keep complaining that he's not working with you. You canceled September 2nd. On September 1st, you say, give me a call. He says, what for? Do you need to reschedule? You say, yes. That's you rescheduling. And then he says,
Okay, Your Honor, would you
okay,
look at
what
the
day
Zoom
would be
meeting?
better for you? Right, but do you see how that changed the entire character of your complaints? Your complaints are he's not working with me, he's delaying, but this is your rescheduling. Your complaints are they never did another logo, but then we see that there's a September 7th text and email where they did the logo with the fist. Because I specifically asked you in the beginning of this trial whether you ever saw a logo with fists, and your response to me was never. Now all of a sudden you saw it at a meeting. Okay, hopefully you did see it at a meeting.
Your Honor, I've also been reaching out to Brian, trying to follow up to let's move this along.
Okay.
I even showed up to a function that I knew he was at, and I was brushed off.
Okay.
So it's
How were you brushed off? How were you brushed off?
He told me he came outside. He said, "Come let me talk to you outside," because he thought I was gonna get eccentric inside. He said, "Come here." He said, "I promise you." He said, "I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna work this out. This, that, any other." And even now, Your Honor, this is so simple, but he is not being And the day I met with him, Your Honor, I told him, I said, "Brian, I'm not good with technology. You're gonna have to hold me by the hand." No problem, Mr. Sin.
There's
All
no
of it-
technology problem here. There's zero technology problem. The only technology problem is you didn't read your emails. That's not a technology problem. Is this relationship just over? You don't want to work with each other and just like do something, Judge, and just let's move on from here? Or do you think that you can salvage this and work with each other?
Your Honor, I admire this young man. I didn't meet this young man in a Walmart parking lot or an alley. I met this young man fighting for black kids in our community. He adopts kids. I spend my life building black people up. And it was hard for me to do this to him.
Okay.
And so I admire what he does, but I had government money and I have a board I have to report to. And so
Why didn't you
I
answer
could
his
still,
email?
me,
Yeah.
because I'm old school, Your Honor. I see the email, I pick up my phone. I get upset with my kids because when I call them, they want to text
Yeah.
me or they tell me to text them. I don't do texts. Pick up that phone and they say, Dad, I text you. You don't text me. Call me. You know, I wear glasses. I have blood pressure problem. Do you know my fingers are thumb? I got to sit. That's a lot of energy.
All right. Look, I
I
want to
love
know.
this guy, and if we can move forward, I don't have a problem. I don't hold ill feelings.
I want so badly to have one case in my day, Mr. Bryan, where we can see something good happen. Can you do that for me? Can you figure out a way to work with him?
Absolutely, Your Honor. I do have respect for Mr. Sims, and I love and I believe in what he's doing, and I want to be a part of it in every way. Unfortunately, I got to be honest that I do have to have some sort of compensation from the payments that were missed.
Right.
But yes, I do want to continue to work.
So perhaps if your side, Mr. Bryan, could just schedule something he can bite off and chew, like what's your preferred method of communication through computers? Is it FaceTime or Zoom, Mr. Sims?
I can do Zoom.
You can do Zoom. So if he
Yeah,
sends
I had
you...
the pandemic required me to learn Zoom.
Right. Well, you know. All right. So if he sends you a Zoom link, you'll be able to click on it and have that meeting like soon, right? Right? We can do that, right? Okay. And now I understand what he's saying. He has a counterclaim against you for the other payments that have all been missed. And I understand why you haven't paid him, but I'd like to resolve this as follows. On your claim against him, I'm going to dismiss your lawsuit with the ability for you to bring it up again if there is a problem in the future, but with the understanding that we're going to resolve things with a new format, and that is schedule the appointment with him on the phone. And then he picks a date, and then you can send him an email. That way you're covered. Anything that happens on the phone, cover yourself, Mr. Bryan, and send him an email saying, I am confirming that blah, blah, blah. If he doesn't respond to your email, that's on him.
Yes, Your Honor.
So that's how you cover yourself with an old schooler, okay? Then you have your meeting, and you pick your logo, and you move on with the other stuff. You need to understand, Mr. Sims, when you have a problem, you can't just keep sending texts and emails saying, call me. That's not how they roll, and they don't have to roll your way. Just because you're technologically not advanced doesn't mean they have to call you, okay? So if you have a problem, spell out your problem in an email. That way there's a record of it. Do you understand that, Mr. Sims?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, the payments that he's behind total what? $1,250?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I am going to order your recovery on your counterclaim of the $1,250 because the payment schedule is not contingent on progress. Some contracts will say, well, if there's progress, then you pay me. Other contracts say, this is how you're going to pay me, and I don't find the progress or lack thereof to be your fault, Mr. Bryan. I'm not finding it to be your fault, and therefore, I'm not finding it to be anybody's fault because I don't have to. I would prefer to hug you two, kumbaya, and get you guys doing what you need to do out there. So I am going to order on the counterclaim that the $1,250 be paid for anything going forward. And that will bring him completely paid on this project. Correct, Mr. Bryan?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. So now he's a paying customer because he's going to pay that. So now we're going to get this thing done, right?
Absolutely.
And now, Mr. Sims, you're going to check your emails, right? And not constantly demand people call you, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, show me some love. I'm not seeing the love. That's my ruling, and I think it's going to work out for everybody. Good luck, gentlemen.
Boom, shakalaka.
Well, the judge has worked out an agreement here between these two parties. Let me talk to Mr. Sims. And Mr. Sims, you are going to go ahead and pay the defendant the $1,250, right? That makes you a paying customer on his schedule.
That's right. This
That's what the
man's
judge.
got a lot of kids. He's a good man. I just need to get an understanding that I'm gonna get my website. It's not nothing personal. It's business.
All right, now Brian, you satisfied
Yes.
with this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he said some really awfully nice things about you. You should feel very good.
I do. It's affirming, and I'm glad that we're able to work something out so that we can continue doing the good work.
All right, well, good enough. Well, the judge worked hard to get this worked out, and good for her, and good for you guys. All right, congratulations, thank you, and good luck to you guys. Okay. Harvey?
So, Doug, just real quick, when the judge talks about dismissing without prejudice, that means that you can refile the lawsuit if the facts warrant and you play it out the way the judge mentioned, but you still have to do it within the statute of limitations.
What are the 3 things you value the most in a person?
Ooh, well, you know the most important thing to me is a sense of humor, right from the get-go, because if you can't laugh at yourself and the other people around you and the things that are going on in this,
And your wife, if you can't laugh at your wife.
Yes, in this absurd life that we live.
Yeah.
I mean, what the hell good is it, right?
Yeah.
So that would be probably number 1 on the list. Number 2, I'm going to say loyalty and just being faithful to your friends and your family. What could be more important than that, right? Mm-hmm. And then number 3, I'll say humility.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could call
People
all
need
3
to,
that you were going to say.
We have to always remember that in the overall scheme of things in this crazy world, we're all kind of small. We're not quite as important as we all think we are. We like to think we are, and what about you?
Same.
You're gonna stick with that?
I don't think I can perfect on it. I'm just going to let that one go with your answers because I think that's
Well, thank God for sense of humor.
true.
This is the plaintiff, Terry Brown. She says she hired the defendant to restain her hardwood floors, and the man did such a horrible job it was declared a disaster by another floor guy. Bottom line, the defendant doesn't know what he's doing. He should be ashamed of himself for claiming he's a professional floor person, and she's here suing him for the $981.52 she's now owed. This is the defendant, Todd Hall. He says he should never have taken this job because the plaintiff's boyfriend is a hostile person who ended up threatening him. And he was like, see you later because he doesn't work like that. Oh, or a refund when he was 95% done with the job? Ha! He's accused of staining a relationship. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $1,130 for the balance owed on the job.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket, the plaintiff says she made a huge mistake hiring the defendant to restain her floors because the guy's a hack and didn't know what he was doing. But the defendant says he never should have taken the job in the first place because the plaintiff is a hostile woman who threatened him. It's the case of from stain to disdain.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ms. Brown, you're suing Mr. Hall for the return of your security deposit plus damages that he, according to you, he did to your floors when you'd hired him to sand, stain, and refinish, I guess, entirely your floors. How did you learn about the existence of the defendant?
A friend of mine is friends with him, and she said he did a great job for her floors.
Had you actually seen her floors?
Pictures of them.
And they looked good?
They did.
Okay, so you hire him and what happens? You agree on a price of what?
It was $1,800.
Okay,
roughly.
$1,770. And what happens?
So he did show up on time to collect the $800. And he was supposed to start the job on Wednesday. He didn't show up, and he didn't call or text. And so my boyfriend had to leave, and so my neighbor was keeping an eye on the house to let him in. And she texted me and said he's not here. So at 1 o'clock, I had texted him and asked him where he was. And he said he was missing a part or a part broke with his machine and that he had found the part and that he would be right over.
Okay. Did he come over that day?
He did at 2:00.
Okay. All right. And then how many days did he take working on it?
So he worked Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
All right. And according to you, he was late every day?
Every day.
And by late, we're not talking about 1 hour or 2 hours. We're talking about no phone call, no warning, and late.
Correct.
All right. And then what happens on day 3?
On Friday, he had done some staining and he was leaving for lunch. And I said, "How's it going?" And he said he had done one of the bedrooms. And he said, "I spilt something." I said, "No one spilt anything. I don't know what I thought he was joking."
Hey, wait. He told you that you had spilled something?
Correct. Or
Okay.
that somebody spilt something. I
Okay.
said, "Nobody's been up there."
Okay.
And so he left for lunch and I went upstairs to see what he was talking about. And that's one of the pictures that you have, and it is spotty. So we came back. I said, "Nobody spilt anything anywhere. I don't have any idea what you're talking about. There's no way anybody was up there." And he said he had to fix that. So I guess sand it.
Okay.
So on Friday I had texted him and said, and because I could only see the stairs and I couldn't go up the stairs, I said,
What am I
"Hi."
looking at here? These are the stairs?
Yes, correct. I said, "This looks like a disaster. They're all blotchy, and you didn't even finish with the stain, under the stair tread." And he said that he thought that they came out really nice, and that he would be there tomorrow just to fix a couple of the stairs. So I couldn't see all of it because the stain was still wet until the next morning. So on Saturday morning, I went up the stairs and then saw all the stain where it wasn't sanded properly. There were swirl marks. The stain was dark on the perimeter of the floors and spotty. And there were screws still in the floors that we had discussed that he was going to take out. And so he said he would come there on Saturday morning and address the couple of stairs. And so when he came, and he didn't show up until 2:00 on Saturday, and he proceeded to give me a very hard time, and he was
How
with
so?
his coworker. He was telling me that, I said, "Todd, you need to take a look at these floors. They look terrible. I mean, the stairs were terrible. And then when I finally got to go upstairs, it looked awful." And he said to me that he thought it turned out really nice, and that you never know how old floors are going to take the stain. And I said, "Does it have anything to do with the fact that possibly you didn't sand them properly, and so it didn't take the stain properly? They look terrible. That's not."
And what did he
what I
say?
hired." He said he thought that they looked good, and he said, "All I have to do is polyurethane them." I said, "You can't polyurethane until they're fixed."
Okay, let me hear
can't
from you,
polyurethane.
Mr. Hall. Let me hear from you.
I didn't tell her they looked perfect. I actually pointed the spots out in the hallway that when you're using a dark stain, you can't see sanding marks sometimes until after you put the stain down. So therefore, it requires touch-up. And I explained that to her, and I actually pointed out more spots to her than she had pointed out to me, and told her that I would fix them. Also, on the stairs, I had told her there was a couple of stairs that didn't look so good, and they needed to be addressing. And I told her I would address it.
She says you
her
were there to
boyfriend started-
polyurethane that day.
Yes, because I was ready to polyurethane, and I.
How
told
are
her
you
I
ready
was
to
gonna
polyurethane with the pictures that I'm showing? Can you see the pictures I have up on the
'cause it would
screen?
have taken me a couple hours to touch that up, and then I could have put polyurethane down that afternoon.
Well, I mean, if they're complaining about the steps, I wouldn't be putting polyurethane until they said, okay, yeah, that's acceptable. And you'd repaired all the things I'm looking at where there's blotching and marks. Where are the marks coming from? Is that from the sander?
Part of that is from the sanding, and you can't see it until after you put the polyurethane, or after you put the stain down, excuse me.
Well,
Which I was going to fix all of that before I put poly down. I wasn't.
Well,
planning
I
on
mean,
putting-
that was not the day for a discussion of polyurethane if there's all these problems all over the place. And why is there such a mess on the steps?
I had told her prior when I started, before I even started, that all the baseboard and all the stairs were going to have to be painted prior to even starting the job, And she told me not to worry about the stairs because she was going to put tile on the back of the stairs.
Okay, can I ask
And I
you
had
why
told her,
there's no
explained it.
stain on the bottom of that bullnose there of the stairs? Why isn't that fully stained?
Obviously, there was a piece of molding that was underneath there that came off.
That's not true, because I
and
see,
that
no,
was-
stop. That is not true, okay? Because there's splotches of stain, there's just not care to stain it underneath. And plus, this other molding goes all the way to that wood. So there was no molding there. So that's not obviously anything. And especially when I'm looking at a couple of pictures, there's another picture where the same thing was going on, where it was just carelessly done.
I didn't tell her I was done. She didn't give me a chance to fix it, first of all.
That's okay. That's the rub, okay? Because you're supposed to have a chance to fix it. Now, according to you, he said this is as good as it's going to get, right, Ms.
I never
Brown?
said that.
Yes. Yes, you did.
Ms. Brown, tell me how the conversation went on the day that you say he was there to polyurethane. Tell me exactly how the conversation went.
So I met him outside because I said, Todd, what's going on? And he said he's going to polyurethane. And he started, he just was being very unkind to me. And my neighbor was sitting out on her lawn and could hear this conversation.
How was he unkind?
He was like, you're being ridiculous. They turned out really nice and you're being so picky. And I said, let's go in the house. Let's look at it. I want you to look at me and tell me that you truly believe that you did a really good job. I want to see your face looking at the floors and telling me that you honestly believe you did a professional job here and that you're proud of it.
And what did he do?
He said, these are old floors and you don't know how they're going to take the stain.
Did you say that to her, Mr. Hall?
I did. They are. When you have older floors and you sand them, you don't know how it's going to take the stain. You know
Okay,
what kind
well,
of
but I guess we do know how it's going to take the stain because you have had the
yes,
floors
we do.
done, right, Ms. Brown?
Yes.
You've had them done by a different professional, and
Correct.
you actually have pictures to show how this floor that he says can't get better than this actually could get better than this,
I didn't
correct?
tell her it could get better than that. I told her I was going to fix the spots. I never said it was going to get better than that. I've never said that, first of all, that's the best it's going to get.
Okay. So on the right would be the job that the defendant did, and on the left is the job that your new guy did, correct?
Correct.
What did he do? Did he sand everything down again?
Yes, he had to
Which I
sand it.
offered
Okay,
to do.
no,
I
but
said I was gonna
Mr. Hall,
resand the
Mr. Hall,
hallway.
there's no question pending for you. Ms. Brown, what did the other guy do? Sand everything down again and restain?
Sand everything and restained. Yes, sanded everything down. It took them 5 crew to do this, and they worked from 8:30 in the morning until 5 o'clock.
And how many days did it take them to do that?
3 complete days to.
Okay, so Mr. Hall, when did you offer to redo 3 complete days? Because you told me you were ready to polyurethane because it would have taken nothing to correct the stains, but she just didn't give you a chance to. When did you offer to sand everything again and restain everything again?
I offered to resand the hallway needed to be resanded. The other bedrooms, there was nothing wrong with the other bedrooms. What was wrong with the other bedrooms, I had to fix the spots where, if you look at those pictures, you can see there's wallpaper or paneling, something taking off the walls. They were upstairs working when after there was raw wood. So I had to go back and fix spots.
You don't see a difference between your job and the other person's job?
Well, absolutely. And I said that needed to be fixed.
Right, but you understand that guy only got it to look that way, not by being there for 2 hours. I just had a few things and then I was ready to polyurethane. No, that guy did it by stripping everything over and redoing your job. I mean, these are side-by-side comparisons of the job of the same wood. And according to the new guy who did this, the previous service was not performed correctly. The previous technician was ill-equipped or improperly trained. The floor had severe machine marks and swirl marks left behind by the edge sander, drum marks left behind by the belt sander, as well as uneven stain. The uneven stain further highlighted the poor sanding. I have spent the last 2 decades of my life growing our home service business. This type of work is a nightmare all customers fear in the scenario that makes our business so difficult. The notion that a professional would leave a floor in this condition is disgraceful. That's the opinion of the new guy. What would you like to respond to that, Mr. Hall?
It's his opinion. I mean, I've done this for 21 years myself. I've done this for a long time.
Would you
happen sometimes.
Yeah, would you say this is your best work?
No.
Right.
Not at all. I never said it was. And,
Right.
I
It's her
offered to
only
fix it.
house, though. It's the one she lives in, and she wants your best work. Everybody who hires you wants your best work. They don't want to have to hire somebody else and pay them a bunch of money to fix your job. I'm ruling in favor of the plaintiff in the amount that she's asking for, the $981.52. As for your counterclaim against her for the remaining balance, I am not going to order her to pay you, because obviously I'm ordering you to refund her money. Clearly, the job you did was not up to par. So $981.52 for Ms. Brown, and on your counterclaim, 0.
Plaintiff prevails. She's going to get what she was seeking, $981 from the defendant. Mr. Hall, let me ask you, what are you thinking about what the judge just had to say?
She didn't give me a chance to fix it. It wasn't, obviously, it's from the pictures. It wasn't my best work, but she didn't give me a chance to fix it. So,
well, you know,
it is what it is now.
All right. He doesn't have much to say about that. Ms. Brown, how are you feeling now? You, number one, you satisfied with the floor job you have now? That they're okay?
Love the floor job they did a wonderful job. Yes.
Very good. Obviously, they look pretty good. The pictures were very self-evident.
Yes.
Yeah, he really did not do a good job at all.
No,
but you're going to get the
he did not.
$981 you're seeking.
Thank you.
So good for you. All right, Harvey?
So, Doug, look, we have talked about this before. There are two ways to go in a case like this. One, you could bring in experts. Judge could look at documents and say, okay, I hear the experts. I realize the floors could have been done a certain way. They weren't done that way, so the plaintiff wins. That's one way. There's a better way, and the better way is simple, and we've talked about it before. You bring in pictures. You bring in video. You show the areas where the job was done poorly. There is nothing like visualizing it for the judge, because an expert witness, especially if it's just a piece of paper, that is kind of hollow, can't be cross-examined. The picture brings the problems to life, and that's how plaintiffs win their cases, and when they don't bring them, that's how they lose them.
The guy who sits near me in our office smells like BO. I complained to my boss about it, but he says he can't do anything, and my coworker claims it's a medical condition that makes him smell. Can I sue?
Can you sue who? Like, who do you want to sue over BO?
Well, I'm assuming, let's say, suing the company for a hostile work environment.
Oh, my goodness.
A work environment that's
Look, I'd be looking for another job. Right. I don't think I would want to work that way, but right. I don't. It sounds like she's actually had a discussion with her coworker.
Right. Yeah. That's got to be uncomfortable.
That had to be an uncomfortable discussion.
Right. And you know, it's on the one hand, everybody's entitled to a safe work environment that's not so uncomfortable that you can't stand it. On the other hand, the ADA does protect certain medical conditions. There's like half a dozen different medical conditions that can cause certain types of body odors, or drugs that
Are there really?
Yeah, or drugs that you have to take.
Yeah, but can't you do something about it?
I'm not sure. You know, what if you have a rule that says you have to have a fragrance-free workplace? Because some places do that, and these HR departments are all over this stuff. They know about this stuff, and they know how to kind of protect themselves.
I've never heard of a fragrance-free. I don't doubt you. I just have never heard of a fragrance-free workplace.
Okay. Well, so I guess what I get from this is, if it were you, you just wouldn't raise a stink about it.
God, how long were you waiting to say that?
Just for a minute.
So I guess the ultimate question is, can you sue? This is America. You can sue anybody for anything, but no, I wouldn't.
Probably
I would just find another place to sit.
Find another place,
or
find another job, but maybe not at the pickled egg factory. Maybe someplace else, right?